Hi everyone, this is Striker, and welcome to my next episode of the, EXTREME-G2 strategy guide? Isn't Redout 2 out? Well, before you grab your pitchforks, I just ask for a few minutes of your time to use my new world record on Hydra Prime The Abyss as an example of how we can use one of the most objective measures of success or failure in any racing game, the speedometer, to your advantage. Throughout every single one of my Redout world records, I made mental checkpoints of how fast I was going at very specific segments. Anytime I made a strategic change, I would check my speed. We can talk about racing lines and boost patterns all we want, but if the end result doesn't result in more speed at a specific point, it's worthless. I took this methodology into EXTREME-G2, a game that I had not played until just a few weeks ago. To preface, I do have experience with this series. I played the original EXTREME-G way back on the N64, and later on played its final successor, XGRA, on GameCube. I really liked both of those games, and EXTREME-G2 carries the same sense of technicality and speed that made me enjoy the others so much. But EXTREME-G2 has its own set of challenges. Let's look at those now. In EXTREME-G2, we are traveling at immense speeds on very tight and technical tracks. In of itself, that would make the experience challenging. But we also have to deal with the limitations of the physics and collision engine at play, being a game running on the N64. For example, when we approach these hills, as you see here, and we will hit a number of these very fast hills, the vehicle will bounce off the ground upon landing and buck up in the air as you see here. From this position, the ship might land straight. The ship might turn off to the side and lose a bit of speed. Or in rare cases, it may even end up backwards. So we'll talk about how I manage my pacing throughout all of these unique hills in Hydra Prime. Something that will be more familiar to Redout fans, however, is the concept of building up speed before you start your time trial lap. Unlike Redout, however, we only get one turbo boost per lap in EXTREME-G, which is referred to as the nitro gauge. So what I want to do here is initiate the nitro from my previous lap just before the start of a new one. This way I can carry the most amount of speed down into this initial straightaway and achieve supersonic velocity, which is marked by these indicators on the HUD and my speed gauge, coming over 742 miles per hour. The other thing to keep note of, however, is that as I'm crossing the starting line, I am making a mental checkpoint of my speed and how fast I should be going. This, right now, 616, 620, is at the very highest end of speed that will allow me to travel fast without flying so high that I hit this top structure and crash. Once I manage this successfully, I'm going to fly down this initial straightaway at a speed so blinding that it becomes almost impossible to line up the upcoming turn, especially since most of the turns in this track are blind. What I do here is initiate a concept in EXTREME-G known as drifting. Unlike the sliding pattern that you might be familiar with from other games, however, EXTREME-G's drift is a very sharp an acute change of angle, as you can see right here. If I just tap my shift, it puts me in a position to exit the turn traveling straight. These upcoming turns are different, however. There's no visible block, so I can exclusively steer around them and build up velocity. That velocity is aided by a technique in Extreme-G, where when you make a gradual flowing turn at a high enough speed, you actually accelerate. This makes you move a lot faster, but it also means that some of the turns, especially later in the track, can feel nearly frame perfect. As I move through this next left turn, I'm going to hit a number of quick drifts, so drift A and drift B. And you can see the back wheel of the bike sort of hop up in the air when I do that. Don't mind so much that minor wall scrape. It didn't lose me a lot of time, and that is evidenced by the speedometer, over 600 miles per hour, and the presence of the supersonic re-engaging, which you can also tell from by the reduction in background music. Now, for each of the 12 locations in Extreme-G2, there are 3 track variants. Those track variants possess many of the same routes and geometry, but there are branching paths that determine the ultimate difficulty of the course. Right here on the left is the medium difficulty path for this particular track, but we like to take things to the extreme on my channel, so we're going to go into the abyss. We have another left-hand turn with another tap of the drift, and now because this is basically a 180-degree right turn coming up, I hit that drift once, twice, 3 times. That puts me in a straight position where I can properly time this left-hander for the final in this particular tube. Now we're coming up to another hill. And this hill, as will many coming up ahead, is a bit more challenging. Watch what happens as I fly up in the air and collide into the invisible boundary on the top of the track. It throws my ship angle to the left. Now I know when I'm landing, I'm going in the wrong position. So what do? I slam right on the steering. Unfortunately, I steered a little bit too far and had a minor collision against the wall. You can see how this dropped my speed down to 580, and I quickly recovered back up to 600 and re-engaged supersonic. The problem is that slight dip, which can be objectively measured, caused my ghost ship from a previous lap to overtake me, if only briefly. Now when we come into the red tube section, I don't need to drift at all. It's simple steering left, right, and left again. With this particular turn, if you're able to steer and avoid that right wall, you can once again achieve over 740 miles per hour and get back into supersonic speeds in your 1 moment of respite in this whole track. Now check the speed as we come up to this next hill. We're moving rather quickly, and we have an encroaching ceiling that we need to manage. So what I do here is apply a slight hit of the brake. So when I land and prepare for my turbo, I'm over 450 miles per hour. Ideally, I would be a little bit closer to 480 here. So I know that I lost a little bit of time. And that can be reflected in the gap between this lap and the previous run ahead. From here though, I'm ready to engage my nitro boost. Watch how long this speed boost lasts. So that's a huge amount of time, and that's not even done. If we go back now, once I achieve this speed, the handling becomes extremely sensitive to any inputs. So going over even a slight hill like this, with the ship getting airborne can potentially throw you completely off course and ruin your lap. Now right here we arrive at a fork in the road, and I want to mention one player in the EXTREME-G2 speedrunning community, Mr. Blonde, A, for helping me out in setting up my EXTREME-G2 time trial experiences, but also for uploading a previous world record lap video for me to refer to. And what he decided to do was take the route on the right, which is slightly wider and gives you a more gradual steering angle into the left tube. However, I like to play it a little bit riskier, and if I know that I can shave off distance that I travel, I'll be in a better position moving forwards. The issue is that that's very hard to do at 700 miles per hour when I'm absolutely flying through this left-hand turn. So what I do here is apply a slight hit of the brake right as I come around here. So watch my speedometer here, 727, boom, down to 640, 650, 660. I can measure how much I need to slow down, not by feel, not by the visual look of it, because remember, the field of view is stretched in supersonic speed, but by the objective measure of my speedometer. I know if I'm in the mid-sixes now, I can barely handle the speed of coming around this turn, and then as soon as I get the visual of this barrier, I have a microsecond to react by shifting the craft, as you see here. Right there. From here, I am in an amazing angle to take this left turn and fly by my previous ghost. This upcoming section here, which is the dip into the volcano, has lost me more laps than any other spot. You're going at 750 plus miles per hour directly into the ceiling, and if you brake, you'll lose too much speed. What you have to do here is slam into the ceiling without any inputs on the controller and pray that your ship doesn't turn backwards. This was pretty lucky. Although my vehicle got turned way to the right, hit the wall, and then hit the right barrier, look at my speed upon landing. 430 miles per hour and greater is a great landing from this section. And I was at 447. 447 and my ship is straight. Now I can work my way back to the middle of the track and prepare for the next section. This is where the objectivity of speed overrides any of the aesthetic faults that you might perceive in a given lap. As I come over this hill, it's much the same. I release my inputs, graze the ceiling, and prepare for my next smooth left turn. Or is it a smooth left turn? Well, unfortunately, due to the limitations of the N64, we experience a change in the geometry of the track, which is very visible by these seams along my mouse cursor. Some of these seams, as we'll see here, tend to elevate the bike. And if we try to take this turn smoothly, we fly right up and into the right wall here. So what I instead do, as soon as I get a wheel down, I create another drift and quickly cut. You can see it there. From here, I can turn smoothly towards the next straightaway. More evidence of the geometry. Watch how my ship bumps as I land. That's okay and relatively unavoidable. As long as I can get the ship close to the barrier on this turn and hold about 430 plus coming into the straight, I'm good to go. Now, as you saw from the real-time lap, from here on out, it looks to be relatively basic. Just close out the lap in style, make a smooth turn, and be on your way. But once again, that dreaded geometry flares up again. We have a downward sloping branch of the track with an elevated surface. We have an oppositely sloped right side of the track with another elevated surface. Hitting either one of these surfaces at the wrong angle while turning will throw you into the corresponding wall, surely ruining your lap. What I did brilliantly here was towed the line between the two seams, and as I move into the straightaway, I angle my ship forwards and I maintain over 600 miles per hour, which in my objective testing is the highest that I've ever achieved. Normally, I'd be sitting around 570, 580. To close out the track, we just have 2 more hills. But as we talked about, hills are not so kind to bikes in EXTREME-G2. Watch the landing here. I come up, everything's smooth, and my bike looks straight. We're good to go, right? But after it bounces, watch the landing. Look how the bike landed sideways. That was not an extreme example. In a bad case, that bike would end up careening towards the wall. But it was a shallow enough change in angle that I was able to save it and redirect straight for the final hill. From here, there's no great approach to this section. It was just a matter of sitting back and waiting. The bike lands, the bike gets thrown in the air, and it lands directly straight. And we cross the line once again at 600 miles per hour. If we look at the lap in its entirety, knowing the speeds that I'm supposed to be hitting at specific parts of the track gives me the flexibility to experiment with strategy. Counting the number of times I physically give inputs to the controller when making these steering adjustments and drifting helps to create consistency. And blending these two elements together in any racing game that you decide to engage with will give you the key for speed. And that might lead you to set your own world records. My name is Striker, and I want to thank you so much for watching my video today. I am looking forward to bringing you more exciting videos in the future, including from a game that I am very sure you are all excited about seeing. Have a great day.